Hello and welcome to coverage of the Primordial Discord Tournament number 4. I'm Caillou. Today we're going to be watching the Swiss Round 1 match between BomBerWill and DackFaded. It looks like Dack is on blue-black Affinity, while BomBerWill, it looks like, might be playing a variation on... I was going to say a variation on the deck that he played last tournament with the Flutter Foxes, but it looks like he's playing a different Eldraine deck. This seems to be blue-white artifact aggro, has the Emery, the Flutter Foxes, of course, doesn't have a land here. And I feel like if Will's considering keeping this, it would be kind of crazy. But like I guess you could, if he hits a no, don't keep that. It's too risky. Yeah, this hand is looking much better. Has access to turn 1 Ginger Brute, then can turn 2 Ginger Brute into an opt to try and hit another threat, and then Arcanist Sowl as once he hits 4 mana. So yeah, this deck is pretty devastating. It basically just, you play some cheap creatures like Ginger Brute. Ginger Brute can also become effectively unblockable. Enchanted with stuff like All That Glitters, and then you just kind of go ham. Meanwhile, Dack's deck is also similarly an artifact-based aggro deck based around this cranial plating, which just grows insanely quickly with the more artifacts you have, and being able to reattach it where you want is also extremely powerful. Doesn't have anything else in his hand right now though. That he, like, the earliest creature he has is the Ferropede on 3. Is unblockable though, but doesn't have anything before turn 3. I guess could Conjurer's Bauble and just use it to draw a card, but I feel like you just play Bauble and keep it around so that you have more artifacts for cranial plating. So it looks like Dack is just going to play the Conjurer's Bauble turn 1, not going to crack it. And then next turn can just cranial plating and then turn 3 Ferropede. And great top deck from for BomBerWill. Actually has the turn 2 Flutter Fox. That's definitely more of a curve than Ginger Brute into Ginger Brute number 2 plus Opt. So yep, just going to run out the Ginger Brute and start getting in those beats. So Dack's still not hitting a black source, so can't play this Night's Whisper. He's instead just going to run out the cranial plating. So Will still has not hit a third land. I think just playing out the Flutter Fox instead of playing out Ginger Brute Opt is still fine. Yeah, he's going to play... Because next turn, if you still don't have a land, then you can go tap the island for an Opt, get a land, then play Ginger Brute. Yeah, just going to swing in for 1 with the Ginger Brute again. So for now, not that great of a clock, but as soon as Will hits like an All That Glitters, this becomes real deadly for Dack. And yeesh, yet another island for Dack. These are some pretty awful top decks. Still, we'll have the curve out into Ferropede, and then next turn can attach cranial plating to the Ferropede, and then it becomes a 4-1 unblockable, which is nothing to scoff at. So Will's still not hitting another land. Does top deck a Flutter Fox, who might just actually play the Flutter Fox out and then keep up the beats. No, okay, he's going to run out Ginger Brute number 2 and then hold up the Opt. And then going to swing in for a whopping 4. Knows that Dack isn't going to trade the Ferropede for one of the Ginger Brutes, so doesn't really have to worry about that. Yeah, the problem is for Dack, like right now, Will is presenting the beatdown. And Dack, even with this cranial plating and this Ferropede, might just not get there unless he hits a string of more artifacts. A second cranial plating is basically the main thing that Dack needs here. Well, it doesn't get that. Does get a Conjurer's Bauble though, which will further buff the Ferropede into a 5-1. So yep, just going to swing in for an unblockable 5 with this cranial plating dubbed Ferropede. Has Will on a 3-turn clock. Unfortunately, Will can turn up his clock to 3 turns as well. Unless Dack is able to speed up here, it could just be that Will, by presenting that early 6 damage, will be able to take this. Okay, on end, Will is going to play an Opt. Hits a third Ginger Brute off of it, I guess, and that was topped. So I guess I'm just trying to amp up the creature count. And if he hits a land here, we'll be able to Flutter Fox plus Ginger Brute. Doesn't though, is only going to hit a Corridor Monitor. So if you're Will, I think you play Ginger Brute and then try to Opt again. Yeah, because at this point, Will just needs the explosiveness of All That Glitters. Because it's really just a solitaire slash gold fishing game of who gets to race faster. And he's going to play the opt main phase this time, no point fainting it. Okay, so I guess drew a land off of the opt, and then is just going to swing in for a nice little 5 damage here. So Dak is dead in 2 turns, so needs to have some way to turn up this clock. Unfortunately, this Knight's Whisper, even if he hits a black source, is just going to hurt him more than it helps. Okay, Mer Servitor is pretty okay here. It doesn't really do much other than be able to chump one of the Ginger Brutes, but I guess even then, BomBerWill has the ability to just pay 3 mana for all 3 of the Ginger Brutes. And Dak just going to swing in for 5. I feel like why not just play Mer Servitor main 1? It is another artifact for the cranial plating. And even if the 1 damage doesn't change the clock significantly, it could help in case Will has any sort of life gain. Which, like, technically these brutes, I just realized these brutes function as life gain. So, no, I think Will can just continue attacking with the Flutter Fox plus 2 Ginger Brutes and still have the clock on Dak because he can crack these Ginger Brutes for life. Okay, main 2 Dak is going to play the Mer Servitor and then equip the cranial plating to it. Not sure why he would do that. It doesn't really help because it's still going to trade with anything Will has because it doesn't increase the toughness. I guess this is in the event that Will has an All That Glitters actually, which is pretty fine. Will, however, is not going to hit All That Glitters. Instead is going to get an Inquisitive Puppet, all of these artifacts, but none of the artifact synergy cards. So yeah, Will's just going to play out the Inquisitive Puppet for the Scry. Then it's going to run out the Flutter Fox. Notably, this does mean that Will can't make these Ginger Brutes unblockable, so Dak can trade one of the Ginger Brutes for the Mer Servitor. Of course can't trade with the Flutter Fox because it has flying. Would love to do that. Does taking 1 less damage here actually help? Because in that case, Dak takes 4, goes down to 5, so that actually does help. That saves Dak a turn. I guess technically the Flutter Fox can come in and attack next turn though, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, Dak's going to take 4, go down to 5. Will is presenting 6 damage next turn. So Dak needs to hit another creature here to act as a blocker. Actually needs 2 creatures. Okay, so Dak does top deck the Mer Servitor, but can't kill Will and gets killed on the crackback here. Will presents 6 damage, 4 of which is flying. I guess Dak can, yeah. Dak is just going to concede there. One thing that Dak could have done is double blocked the Ginger Brutes on the ground. But then I guess the thing is Dak doesn't have a hasty creature of his own to crack back in with. That was a game that really it came down to the wire of turns. Despite having that unblockable huge threat with the cranial plating, Dak didn't have the benefit of that early damage like Will did. And let's see if Dak can leverage another turn, because this time, even though he was on the play, he didn't really have the creatures to curve out with and leverage that advantage with. Let's see if he's able to do that in game 2. So pretty strong curve for Dak here. Turn 1 Mer Servitor, turn 1 Cranial Plating or Pentad Prism, and then turn 3 Ferropede. Meanwhile, Will has an equally strong curve, can go turn 1 Ginger Brute into like turn 2 Witching Well, try to hit something, plus another Ginger Brute. I think it really comes down to, again, Will didn't need the All That Glitters last game to win, but might need it this time. Just because both of these players have technically unblockable creatures, it's just, it comes down to who can present that early clock and have their, important Boggle style, well, in Will's case, enchantment with All That Glitters, and in Dak's case, the equipment with cranial plating. So yep, Will running out the Ginger Brute. He's going to swing in. Yeah, Dak isn't going to block with the Mer Servitor. Needs that critical artifact mass for cranial plating to be worth. Still, that is how Dak lost last time. By taking a bunch of chip damage early in the game and then just not having a fast enough clock to make up for it. Oh, the Vidalcan Shackle's looking real nice though. This way we'll be able to yoink a problematic Ginger Brute. The problem is, since Vidalcan Shackles is based on power, if Dak doesn't have the critical density of islands once all that glitter hits, could be problematic. But otherwise, this does function as good removal. And also isn't going to run out the cranial plating, is instead just going to run out the pentad prism. I guess this is so that since Dak doesn't have another land, he can play Ferropede next turn. So Will's going to play an Inquisitive Puppet, functions as a good blocker for this Mer Servitor, so they aren't just trading off damage each turn with the Gingerbrute and the Mer Servitor. And then Gingerbrute number 2 or a Witching Well? Okay, yep, Gingerbrute number 2. He's going to swing in for 2 here. I'm surprised that Will put Inquisitive Puppet into his deck, especially as one of the uncommons, because of how limited uncommon slots are. But I guess this deck does need a critical mass of artifacts and enchantments for all that glitters to be viable. Anyways, Dak hitting the land off the top of his library won't have to crack this Pentad Prism to be able to play the Ferropede. And then next turn, the Cranial Plating comes down. So Will, with this Opt and Witching Well, has lots of essentially card selection here. I think you probably run out Gingerbrute and then play both the Witching Well and the Opt, and then just try to high roll into All That Glitters. Or maybe you just play the Opt first, try to hit an All That Glitters, and then if you hit an All That Glitters, you just immediately equip it to a Gingerbrute and go ham. If not, then you just can play out the Gingerbrute number 3 and then the Witching Well. No? Okay, Will is going to run out Witching Well first. Okay, and then Will is going to give both the Gingerbrutes unblockable. Is not going to play out the Opt or the other Gingerbrute. So they're just going to take 2 there. I feel like since you know that Dak isn't going to want to trade the Gingerbrutes for the Mer Servitors anyway, I feel like if you're Will, you just, there's no reason not to just play out Gingerbrute plus Opt. I feel like that was a bad play on Will's part. Oh, and a Conjurer's Bauble for Dak. Can play the Cranial Plating, equip it to Ferropede, and use the Pentad Prism mana to play Conjurer's Bauble. And yep, is going to do exactly that. Plays the Cranial Plating, equips it to the Ferropede, and then runs out the Conjurer Bauble with the Pentad Prism. So Ferropede gets to swing in for a massive 6. This means Will is technically on a 4-turn clock, but as soon as Dak gets to play another artifact, it actually becomes a 2-turn clock. And Dak does have 2 more artifacts in hand, so that means unless Will can pull out a quick kill here, this isn't happening isn't going to be a quick 2-0 and done. We're going to a game 3. So Will just hitting a land. At this point, I feel like you either have to crack the Witching Well to try and draw into something. No, I think no, because then you don't have mana. So just play the Opt, try to hit an All That Glitters, and then if you don't, you just play Gingerbrute plus Corridor Monitor and just build up your board. So he's going to play the Opt, and ooh, a Stonecoil Serpent. So that's one of Will's rares. It's not good enough though, with only 3 mana. But I guess it's better than playing out a Gingerbrute or Corridor Monitor right now. But this is not what Will needs right now. Okay, so he's going to play out Gingerbrute number 3. And again, like we mentioned game 1, I guess one option that Will does have can start cracking these Gingerbrutes to gain life. Even though Dak technically has a 2-turn clock, Will can just crack these Gingerbrutes. So Will is going to make these Gingerbrutes unblockable and then swing in with them. I feel like at that point you would just play the Corridor Monitor, but okay. And then I can still crack them for life. So Dak is going to run out the top-decked Pentad Prism. I'm surprised he isn't running out just a second Ferropede, but I guess it doesn't really matter that much. No, Vidalcan Shackles cost 3, so I can't use his Pentad Prism for anything else. I'm not sure why he didn't play Vidalcan Shackles or the Ferropede instead. But either way, I guess it is another artifact to pump up this Ferropede to a 7-1. So Will is going to go down to 6 life here. And the Pentad Prism doesn't even allow for a double spell next turn, because Dak would need 6 mana for that. And currently Dak only has access to 4 and then 5 if he top decks a land. But Will's only out here is really... I was going to say, top decking All That Glitters, you crack a Gingerbrute to gain life, which did not happen. So I guess Will's best play is make 2 of the Gingerbrutes unblockable, crack another Gingerbrute for 3 life, Oh, but it looks like Will is just going to concede there. Yeah, I guess Will could have stalled out for a little bit more there, but I guess if he doesn't have any removal, then it wouldn't have quite mattered because it would be stalling to nothingness, especially with Will not having enough artifacts for all that glitters plus Gingerbrute to present a one-turn lethal clock for Dak. So we are going to a game 3. Let's see who wins this war of artifact unblockable aggro decks. Okay, so Will has a pretty good curve here. Turn 1 Gingerbrute, turn 2 Flutterfox, turn 3 is a gap, but then can play Inquisitive Puppet for the Scry, and then turn 4 Arcanist Sal. On Dak's side, has no creatures, does have Grafted Wargear, Cranial Plating, and a Vidalcan Shackles. So, gonna swing in for one of the Gingerbrute, but yeah, if Dak doesn't hit a creature here, this is looking pretty painful for him. And there's a 4th island. Yeah, I don't know if you should I don't know if you should have kept this hand, honestly. This seems really questionable. So Will, yep, just curving out into the Flutterfox. And a Conjurer's Bauble for Dak. It's just going to play the Cranial Plating, but I feel like if you're Dak, you almost want to play the Conjurer's Bauble and then immediately crack it to draw a card, because I feel like hitting a creature is more important. Like, I feel like you would want to play the Conjurer's Bauble, crack it, ideally hit a Ferropede, and then curve into Ferropede, because that's just the most, having a creature is the most important thing, and Grafted Wargear makes having a high density of artifacts less important than just having an actual creature to put it onto. Anyways, Will hitting a Quarter Monitor, now Inquisitive Puppet plus Quarter Monitor to build up his board a little bit. Okay, and then just going to swing in with the Flutterfox and the Gingerbrute. And then I guess is going to play the Quarter Monitor, untap Flutterfox on main 2. Not that it really matters, but it's the appropriate sequencing. And yep, here comes Quarter Monitor. Hitting another Cranial Plating, but one line that I realized Dak can do is, play the Vidalcan Shackles, and then next turn can yoink a Flutterfox, and then use Will's own creature against him. Oh, but there's the All That Glitters from Will. And that you just put that on the Flutterfox, and then Dak, the Flutterfox becomes a what? At this point, it'll become a 5/5. Dak does not have enough islands to get that. Oh no, All That Glitters also counts itself, so the Flutterfox becomes a 7/7. That puts Dak on a 2-turn clock, and I don't think that Dak has any other interaction other than the Vidalcan Shackles. So yep, Fox gets +4/+4. It's going to swing in the sky for 6, and meanwhile the Gingerbrute and Quarter Monitor will swing on the ground for additional 2, dealing a whopping 8 damage in total and leaving Dak dead next turn. An Immerse Servitor from Dak, but none of this actually helps. He's gonna grab the Gingerbrute with the Vidalcan Shackles. I'm surprised Will didn't sacrifice it in response, but I guess it was tapped, so Will couldn't actually. So Flutterfox goes down to a 5/5, and then Dak can block the Quarter Monitor on the ground. But I guess the question is, what answers could... I guess the answer that Dak can have is cracks this Conjurer's Bauble and hits an island, because then he can use Vidalcan Shackles to grab the Flutterfox. Oh wait, that doesn't even work, because Will gain control of the Gingerbrute again if he chooses to let Vidalcan Shackles untap. So I don't think that Dak has any outs. I guess his one out is if Will for some reason trades this Inquisitive Puppet in for a human. Instead, Will's just going to play this Mantle of Tides and has just enough mana to equip it to the Flutterfox. This means that the Flutterfox will go up to exactly 7 damage, so Dak just loses here. And that's game. So good games to both players, but BomBerWill on Eldraine Blue-White All That Glitters takes it 2-1 over DackFaded on 5th Dawn Blue-Black Affinity. And yeah, both of these decks have very similar game plans. So it was really interesting to see both of these decks kind of solitaire each other out. It was kind of a weird matchup in that regard. So I think Dak definitely has a good chance against other decks which aren't just trying to solitaire as much and are actually trying to like or have like a different plan which isn't as interactive. The, until next time, this is Caillou signing off.